Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here. Today we're going to be talking about 5 traps that you must avoid in your 20s. These are mistakes I see a lot of guys making, and you want to avoid these because they can have a big impact on your trajectory for success. These are important at all stages in a man's life, but they're particularly important in your 20s. You can think about success like the trajectories of a rocket ship. The path you take at the beginning has a big effect on where you end up. If you imagine a ship going to Mars, if you send it off from the wrong side of the Earth at the beginning, you're going to have to put a lot more work in correcting your course than if you had a small mistake later on in the journey when you're almost there. And this analogy applies really well to success in life. Doing well in the early stages of the game really sets you up for success later. This guide is for people who really want to achieve elite levels of success. That is, you really want to be the best of the best. The first trap you want to avoid in your 20s is getting into a toxic relationship. This can come in many forms. Let me tell you a story. There was a girl I was seeing a couple years ago, and she told me this story about one of her guy friends. He got into this relationship with a girl and they started seeing each other all the time. She was really jealous of his time and wanted to monopolize all of it, so they ended up spending every day together. He was into the gym before and was pretty jacked, but eventually it got to the point where they were hanging out every day and she would make him skip the gym to hang out with her. After dating like this for 6 months, he had gained 20 pounds and lost all of his gym gains. They would just hang out every day after school and go to eat. This was not a good relationship because she was interfering with who he was as a person and stopping him from chasing his dreams. You need to be careful of dating people who will try and stop you from achieving your goals. There's nothing wrong with someone wanting a lot of your time, but this is a problem if it becomes too much. And I don't think there's necessarily something bad about these girls, but they're a lot better off dating a guy who doesn't have lofty dreams. You should never get into a situation where you're in a relationship and you're giving up on your ultimate goals. People talk about having time back in the day, and they will ultimately resent not having the opportunity to chase their dreams. I'd recommend that you stay single until you actually meet someone special and someone who's able to support you on your mission. Now, other signs of toxic relationships are people who bring a lot of negativity into your life. Your outlook on life is partially determined by the people around you. And if you're dating someone who's really negative, complains all the time, nags about small things, and can never see the bright side of life, this is going to rub off on you and dampen your outlook as well. If you are dating someone like this, you can talk to them about it and maybe they'll improve, but you can't expect to change someone, so you may be better off with someone else. Now, another sign of a bad relationship is someone who suppresses your personality. You want to be careful of this because it interferes with your ability to live authentically. You want to surround yourself with people where you can truly be yourself with. And your 20s are an especially important time because they're a foundational period for development of your personality. Okay, the second trap that you want to avoid in your 20s is substance abuse. It seems that our culture is becoming more and more accepting of substance use. The argument for this is that a lot of substances, like weed for example, don't necessarily damage your health to a huge degree right away. But using these substances does come at a cost and you want to be careful with them. Yes, this applies to alcohol as well. There are a few main drawbacks to using a lot of substances. The first one is your opportunity cost. When you're spending a lot of time drunk or high and hungover the next day, you're just not doing very much that's productive. You'll find that a lot of the most successful people were using minimal substances during their come-up period. For me, I'm using every single minute of my day productively, so I can't afford to sleep in on Sunday morning and be hungover for half the day. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you can't have a couple of drinks here and there, but I think you want to draw the line at where it starts to affect your functioning. If it's really starting to interfere with your life, bring it up with your doctor because there is help. Now, the next drawback here is addiction. This one's pretty obvious, and basically you just don't want to open a box that you can't close. Addiction is really nasty to deal with, and you don't want to get into it. Next, when you use a lot of substances, it resets your threshold for dopamine release. Dopamine plays a big role in motivation, and if you're using substances to feel good, you're not going to get the same enjoyment from a hard workout or reading or working at your job. This is a problem because you're not going to end up working as hard the other hours of the day, and you ultimately will be on a different trajectory towards success. Now, the other drawback of substance use is an insidious one, but it's that it curbs your building of social skills. I went out a few times with one of my friends last summer, and his crew would always just go to the club, buy a table and a bunch of bottles, and get drunk. They had a good time and they actually met girls this way, but the problem with this is that when you're spending the whole weekend wasted, you're not actually spending time having intelligent conversations friends and actually building your social skills. So when you hung out with these guys sober, they didn't actually have a lot to talk about. And from the dating end, they didn't have the courage or the skills necessary to actually talk to girls during the day. So if you really want to achieve elite levels of success, my recommendation would be to minimize substance use. Okay, the third trap that you must avoid in your 20s is chasing girls. Chasing girls is a problem for a couple of reasons. The first part of this is that guys chase girls that aren't into them. When I was younger, I used to think that I could chase the girl that didn't like me and eventually I'd win her over just like in the movies. But in reality, this doesn't really work. First of all, most of the time you're not going to get her. And even if you do, you're not going to get her in the quality of the relationship that you want. That is, she's never going to treat you right. You want to think about focusing on the girls who are really into you and not wasting energy on the girls on the fence. The problem is a lot of young guys have never experienced what a relationship is like when the girl is really into you. This is something that you won't know until you experience, and a lot of guys can go their whole lives and even get married and never experience that true level of attraction from someone. If you had to choose between a hot girl who doesn't treat you well versus a girl who isn't as hot but is really into you, I would actually go for the girl who treats you well. Learning how to manage your time with women is going to be really important for guys in their 20s because again, the time here is critical on your trajectory towards success. A guy who's going out 5 days a week trying to go on dates or meet girls isn't going to be nearly as successful as someone who buckles down during this period and works. I don't think you need to be a total monk in this time, but I'd limit your time for dating to about 1 or 2 nights a week. Along this vein, even if you are getting good results with girls, you can overdo it. Some guys are on the opposite end of the spectrum of chasing girls that don't like you, and they actually get good results, and then they end up spending too much time dating. Dating a whole bunch of girls at once isn't going to be very productive. And the point I want to stress here is that you're not going to be getting good results in your 20s anyways, because your value is still relatively low as a man. A man must become. And this means leveling yourself up in the departments of looks, fitness, money and career, status and social network, and your personality. And this takes years for you to develop. So if you aren't having the love life of your dreams in your 20s, don't feel bad about it. Things are gonna get way better later on if you keep focusing on your mission and developing yourself as a man. Now, the fourth trap that you want to avoid in your 20s is scattered efforts. Biggest problem guys have in their 20s is not working hard enough, but some guys do work hard, but their efforts are too thinly spread. I want you to think about this analogy. Imagine having a magnifying glass and focusing the power of the sun on a small spot on the ground. Using the magnifying glass would have concentrated the energy of the sun on that one spot, and that one spot probably got pretty warm. But now imagine a hypothetical magnifying glass that was the size of the entire Earth. It captured all the sunlight that was headed towards the Earth and concentrated it on that same single spot. Imagine how much you could burn up with all of that focused energy. I want you to think about your life in that way. Choose one main goal at a time and focus the entire energy of the sun on that single point. When you're completely immersed in chasing a single goal, you're going to be thinking about it day and night, and you'll end up going way faster than someone who's spreading their efforts too thin. The amazing thing is that when you focus all of your efforts for a period of time on one goal, once you achieve that goal, you can move on, and what you accomplish gets added to your list of achievements forever. I had this mentality last year when I was competing in natural bodybuilding. I dieted for 4 months in the year and ended up winning my pro card in natural men's physique in May. Then I dieted another 4 months later in the year to have my pro debut and then to compete at world championships. During this year, I was solely focused on my physique goals. I was weighing out my food, hitting 4 2-hour workouts a week, and really leaving no stone unturned. This was terrible from a productivity standpoint because I was so exhausted all the time from that diet fatigue. You really become unproductive when your hormones hit those unhealthy levels. But after winning my pro card, that is an achievement that I can hold on to for life. And now I'm taking a break from competing to focus on business and YouTube. You can see that by incrementally leveling up different parts of your life at different times, you're able to eventually advance on all fronts. Do this for long enough and you will become invincible. Now, the fifth trap that I want you to avoid in your 20s is having loser friends. People always say that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I would agree with this to some extent. No matter how hard you resist it, the personalities of the people you spend time with will rub off on you. If everyone around you just wants to watch TV every day after work and get wasted every weekend, it's going to be way harder for you to actually stay on your grind. On the other hand, if you're surrounded by people who are ultra focused like you are, their momentum will carry you along and you'll end up going even faster. Now, the problem I faced in this front was that I couldn't find people around me who were working as hard as I was. In this case, it's okay for you to be a lone wolf in your 20s. If you're shooting for the top, you may very well be the only one with that elite work ethic. The reason why bodybuilders get along so well when they meet each other is that they respect the discipline and hard work that goes into the sport. We know how rare it is to meet someone else who has that level of dedication to actually succeed in natural bodybuilding. This was a really hard pill for me to swallow when I was in my 20s. It was a pretty lonely time, but I'll always remind myself that as an ex-track runner, if you want to win the race, at some point, you need to separate yourself from the pack. If you think about a guy like Elon Musk, there's only one Elon in the whole world. So it only makes sense that if you really want to be elite, there's not going to be that many of you to vibe with. And at some point, it's okay to be different. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have any social contact at all. It is totally normal and healthy to have friendships, even with people who aren't trying to be as successful as you are. All I want to say is that you want to be careful about how much time you're actually investing in those relationships, and don't let yourself fall into the same unproductive habits that they do. One of the really valuable things of living in our time is that we have access to online mentors. By watching people like me on YouTube, listening to podcasts, and reading books, you're able to have pocket mentors from all around the world who will teach you things at the highest level and share their experiences of an entire lifetime. I think this is an amazing opportunity and one that will really help you alleviate that feeling of loneliness in your 20s. If you're on your purpose and you're having trouble meeting other elite guys who are on the same wavelength, try to find mentors on social media that you can look up to. Alright, my young kings, hope that helped you out. If you're in your 20s and you're trying to aim for that elite level of success, check out this video where I talk about how 18 to 28 is make or break for most men. Setting your trajectory properly in this time period is going to be crucial for success, and I really want you guys to optimize things in this decade. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to transform your life. Until next time, crush the day.